in it is an adoption of an art course that has been in the making, and also an art philosophy statement for presentation to the board. And then following that, it remains spotlight on the high school all night tonight. We'll give you an update on the NEAS report. So it's all about the high school. I think for the next 3 months, it's pretty much all about the high school.
Possible.
Yeah, it could be. So I'm going to turn it over and welcome the team from the high school. TJ.
Great, Joe. Thank you. And I thank the board for giving us an hour this evening. And just a few quick thank yous. Melanie Witcher spends a great deal of time updating our program of studies, deserves a lot of credit for the work she puts in, and works really closely with the coordinators who work closely with the entire faculty. So every department has an opportunity, every member of the faculty, to actually give input and make suggestions regarding numerous different things, even outside of the actual curricular work that's going on in a specific department. Bill Summers joined us tonight as well to be part of the presentation. We're going to get right into this. You know, it's not as lengthy as it thinks. There's course as it seems. There are course descriptions at the end that we're not going to go over. They're certainly for your reading pleasure, but we always provide those. And you know, we're anticipating the scheduling for the 23-24 school year, which begins in January with students. They'll make course selections as early as the last week in January and be finished by the first week in February. And then we start that ball rolling very quickly, very extensive process, to say the least. So I'm going to refer to the slides often. This is just a slide that summarizes the overview of the changes we're going to speak to tonight. You can see the first item listed, STEM humanities criteria for designation, and then the department specific updates are listed. So every department listed below that, there's some type of update that we'll speak to this evening, and then obviously answer any questions if you have them as we move along.
So the first part that TJ talked about was updating the designated courses for STEM and humanities. So just to give you a little brief history, about 2 years ago, a committee met to decide what will STEM and humanities look like in Madison Public Schools, what courses would count towards STEM credit and towards humanities credit. So everything that you see in the black text was what was previously adopted. So each of those standards, if our curriculum includes at least 50% of the taught or assessed curriculum in each of those standards, or any combination of them. So a history class might have history standards and some English standards. An economics class might have economic standards and also some language arts standards. Then the course is designated as humanities, and it has that little symbol in our program of studies. What you see in red is what we're proposing to add. So the National Core Art Standards are used both in art and music. And with those two departments recently going through their curriculum writing process, art is coming to an end and music is just beginning. We thought that we should add them in where they fit. So what you see there, composition and theory, the K-12 media arts, and also the visual arts standards will be added as a humanities designation. And then similarly, for the STEM designation, we would like to recommend adding the music technology strand for STEM designation. I'm going to turn over to Bill to talk a little bit about art specifically.
Well, we came together as an art department. I think the last time when we had done our art philosophy, we really thought that it really needed to embody what we actually do. So, you know, we as a department came and kind of created this. And I think that, you know, it does speak to the work that we do in the department. I mean, I think that we are really pushing to develop the skills that the students need to be, you know, to be creative and to, you know, to really like push forward and seek different opportunities within the arts to seek answers. So we have this philosophy statement here, which I think is. We also then wanted to talk about kind of the approach that we take. One of the things that we really pushed on was the growth-based approach. One of the things that we had put in was a chart of creativity cycle, which enabled the students to kind of visualize what the whole process was, from the imagining part through the first iterations and things like this, and everything is based around feedback that's all from their peers, from the teacher, and really what should be self reflection. So this is what we talked about here. Now, the final course that we had just finished was printmaking, and one of the things that we really were pushing for was an area where students could have an art class, but it actually spoke outside of the arts. So we really wanted something that had. We talked about the respectful dialogue. We talked about different things with social advocacy and peace building, and using printmaking, I think, was very important, just because we found that a lot of students can be successful with it. It's something that within the even more limited skills, but a variety of skills and levels of those skills, you can still get some excellent artwork out of it. So we're happy. This is the first time we'll be teaching this course, I believe, this next trimester.
So that pretty much culminates that first sort of agenda item where we were going to talk about what classes we would like to add in terms of designated for STEM and for humanities. Each of the slides that we're going to go through now talk about department specific updates, and they're just basically alphabetical. There's no hierarchy to what we're talking about. And so a lot of what you're seeing, it'll just give you the names, and then everything is at the end of the presentation in terms of like specific details with actual course descriptions.
Can I just real quick
Yeah.
before we move on then?
Absolutely.
Very quickly. I know that we received a presentation almost a year ago regarding the arts curriculum. And the board, the curriculum and student development committee, and also the board kind of asked that while we recognized all your great work, we asked that, and we gave a charge that we hoped that you would be less self-limiting and more kind of broad-based, and really dig into allowing students their expression and creativity, and not just the rote, this is how you take a photograph, this is how you paint, this is how you draw. And I just want to say, just from what I've seen in that first 2 minutes, it sounds like you took that very seriously, and you came back with something that's much more creatively focused and focused on the holistic student, and even the students that are not really arts oriented, and you incorporated some of the important aspects of what we're trying to achieve in preparing our students for the future with critical thinking and expression and all of that. And you are to be commended. Thank you very much for taking that seriously and incorporating it so quickly after we provided that request, direction, whatever.
I have to say, it was getting the department together and doing it, because everybody, we have Claire Stone, who's moved up to the high school full time. Mary Smith is full time. I mean, it's a great team that filled in for the people that retired, and everybody is very serious and wanting to make it just a better place for everybody. So
Thank you for that.
I appreciate that.
And there's gonna be an opportunity again for questions, but I don't want to glaze over sort of those first two slides. I know it was a very brief, this is what we're suggesting. But if there are specific questions on that before, the departmental updates are gonna be pretty quick. But if anyone had any questions on just that humanities pitch, I can answer those questions now if you wanted to. If not, we can keep them. Okay. So along those lines, if we adopt the new standards to be included as humanities designation in art, then we would also like to propose simultaneously new course designations. So if those strands are now going to be considered as humanities strands, then each of these courses should now be considered as humanities designated courses. So those are the 4 courses that you will see the new little humanities symbol in the program of studies. There was one prerequisite change in art, and it was basically just to allow additional access for students. Previously, this course had 2 courses required, so like a drawing studio. And the art department decided that students didn't need 2 previous foundational courses. And so by reducing it to 1 foundational course, it just allows more students to take the course sooner. Good.
Could you clarify for me? I mean, I get it, that
the standards and the designation call for new courses. I want to get a sense of where student voices in that, because I've read through it and I've read the course descriptions. And, you know, my read on the course descriptions is they're very student centered. They're designed to attract interest and, but I'm wondering, as we designate new courses, is that influenced at all by what students are asking to have?
In terms of the designations themselves, that's very standards based and just the approach from the state and how we assign credits. So every student has to take 9 STEM credits and every student has to take 9 humanities credits before they graduate. So the state sort of laid that foundation, and then it was up for us, led with the charge of what do we deem as Madison Public Schools, what do we count as being STEM and what do we count as being humanities? So we decide basically the designation of the courses, but within that, if you, and I have a draft copy of the printed version that I can pass around, you can see every single course that sort of has that STEM symbol, that's where the student choice comes in. So I might choose that I want to take one particular STEM course different than what TJ might select. We both earn credit towards our 9 credits of STEM that's required, but I can choose the 9 credits that I'd like, and TJ can choose different credit or different courses. So the student choice is what courses that they take, not necessarily the designation as a whole. That's a little bit more just a state requirement that you have to take sort of 9 credits in each area.
I'm just trying to get a sense of, you know, because frequently our students are in many ways, you know, sometimes more attuned than we are. So, you know, if students say, I really want to have a digital music course, is there a pathway where when students are saying, this is something I would like to see at Daniel Hand, there's a place for that beyond, well, you know, we have the STEM designation and we have the humanities designation, therefore, you know, we will need these courses to fill that. And, you know, I'm just trying to get us.
Let me jump in if I can. So we are doing the music pathways, you know, as you know, and that any intake before we do new pathways and new creation of curriculum is heavily based on student voice. So Sarah Sundora, who's doing the wellness curriculum, and Leah Stillman, who's doing music, actually teamed together and did intake and focus groups for students before any new courses are revised or any pathways are.
And that was my sense,
Yeah,
but I think
yeah,
it's important to be said.
you're absolutely right. We go all the way down to Brown. And they actually put a line at Brown. There were kids wanting to tell them a lot about what they wanted. But in every level, we survey kids in some way, shape, or form, mainly focus groups, to make sure that every kid has an opportunity to tell us what they want and to tell us what they're interested in. And in this particular, the humanities piece, you'll see that some of the courses are written as humanities for the art department. Those are ones that have a high degree of student voice and a high degree of kind of societal interest or cultural interest that really makes it a humanities versus makes it just an art course. So there is that piece, and of course, students are the ones who give us a lot of that input when part was done. And Bill, forgive me if I'm wrong, I think you did the same thing. You did focus groups before.
We did surveys, yes, absolutely, we did small groups as well.
That's part of our regular practice, that we go on and do that. I appreciate that question. Thank you.
So moving on to updates from the CTE department, the majority of the updates from CTE is just to keep up with industry standards. So they're very astute to know what things are being called in the industry and ensuring that we align with that. So they just made a subtle name change. They went from computer integrated manufacturing to computer aided manufacturing, and then they revised their course description similarly, just to adhere to industry standard. They're really excited that we have a partnership course this year, or we're going to offer one this year with Goodwin University. So this is a class that we have offered in the past. So computer aided drafting is a course that has been offered in our program studies for years. Goodwin University offers a similar course called Technical Drawing and Specification. So we're going to call the course the Goodwin University name. So that's why there's an update, and then students will be able to earn 3 credits towards that course at Goodwin University by taking it here at Hand. In our entrepreneur course, we've just removed the prerequisite, again, just increasing access. Students do not need a foundational course of introduction to business. When they looked at their curriculum, they said that students could take entrepreneurship without the prerequisite. So that'll just increase access to that class. Subtle change, TV studio is now going to be called TV production. And then just subtle course description changes that you'll find at the end of the presentation, both for personal finance and robotics.
And just add in that personal finance is a required graduation requirement for every student.
But is that just pass fail? Or is it-
Yes.
And it's also part of our profile of a graduate, which is an important component that we'll talk about a little later as well.
It's great.
So we have one update in our English department. We have a senior elective that used to be titled Combat Literature after a few years of teaching the course. A lot of input from the teachers, staff, and even some veterans who visit the course on a regular basis. We're proposing a revision to the course description, which you can see at the end of this presentation, and a new title. So instead of referring to the course as Combat Literature, the department thought it was a more appropriate title, Attitudes Toward War. So one update in the English department. We also have an update in the mathematics department, basically just removing course offerings. If you look at the two offerings that are listed, accounting, and that course is offered, but it's actually offered in our CT department, not in mathematics. So a student can still take that particular course, but we're planning on removing it from the mathematics offering. And then the computer science application development, that is a course that's just long overdue to be removed. It wasn't updated through the curricular process. It was taught years ago by someone who no longer works at Daniel Hand. So it's just time to move that out of the program of studies.
But just real quick, are there other courses that fulfill the subject of teaching like coding to
We have
students?
computer science, AP computer science
Okay.
courses that are gaining popularity, and several teachers have the ability to teach that particular course, and we always run a few sections every year.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
The music department has quite a few changes, and so it's solely due to the curriculum writing process. So they are removing the courses of music theory 1 and 2 and piano 1 and 2, and replacing them with some really exciting new offerings. So the first set of offerings, which will allow students to earn STEM designation, a music technology course, and a piano course that we're now shifting to not just piano, but piano and digital audio. Again, keeping in mind that trying to adhere to industry standards, trying to adhere to what students will see if they want to go into music in college. So Leah's focus is really heavy in the technology area for both of these two courses. And then on the other side of designations in the humanities side of things, taking a music theory course and also offering AP music theory for the first time. These are just, again, subtle revisions to the name. So everything on the left is what we previously offered. We're still offering those courses, but we're just revising the names to what you see on the right. And then every single course description has been completely updated out of the curriculum process.
To continue with a department or a few departments that are in the current process of revising and rewriting curriculum, the PE Health and Wellness. Gail's put a lot of time in with that department, and Sarah Sandor taking the lead. Because of the curricular work, we're removing the courses that you see listed, and they're not going to be just disappearing completely. There's replacements with newer and we hope to be more exciting courses. So we plan to see the PE Health 9 Junior and Senior Health and Self-Defense removed from the program study. And then we have some new course offerings that are pretty exciting. We're looking at not only covering the required standards in health and PE, but also giving students choice. So as an incoming freshman next year, a student will get to pick if they're interested in personal fitness or recreational games, not both. Used to be one course that was automatically populated through the scheduling process. So we're moving more towards student choice, which is really exciting. And then moving health out of the PE class. Currently, it's mixed within, like a certain number of days is dedicated to a health curriculum. The other days are dedicated to PE. Students will take health 1 and health 2 over the course of their experience at Daniel Hand, not as freshmen coming into the high school.
Is that a required course?
Yes. Absolutely. PE and health each require 1 credit for graduation. It's exciting. We've been talking about giving kids some choice around particular topics and, the incoming freshmen starting next year will have some choice. And if you take a look at this particular slide, you can expect a presentation the next 2 years following this year about how we're transitioning the new health and PE courses into the student body, because obviously students in grades 10, 11, and 12, for example, it's going to be a little different transition as opposed to an incoming freshman. So we'll give you updates as we move along, but you can see in 9th grade, the new courses that are currently being worked on right now will be offered, which is really exciting. And those incoming 9th graders will have the entire experience. It will be a little different over time, with like a current junior, they may have had all their, by the end of this year, all of their requirements finished, so it won't impact them whatsoever. But we will share the transition as we move forward over the course of the next 2 years.
And do the health courses include mental health and well-being education?
Along with other things.
Yeah.
And Sarah will be doing a presentation to this committee, I believe in December or January. Yeah. So she's on the agenda, and so is Jen, who's the head of counseling. So you'll hear more about that.
Thank you.
I particularly liked, I liked an awful lot of the descriptions because I thought they were very well written and student centered, but that whole area of PE clearly has a focus on how do we cultivate a lifelong interest in activity. So it's, in contrast to PE years ago, where, if you take the course, you get through PE, you get the credit, and you move on. This is, explore things that you can continue to do into your life. We enjoyed seeing that shift.
We're really excited about it. It's long overdue, it was paused because of COVID, but you'll see, as we do our presentation, there's been a lot of thought about cultivating wellness and well lifestyles from a very early age and on up through, very consistent. So it's a little different than traditional pathways, but we're really excited about it. And it definitely anchors itself in student choice and interest, and not all kids feel the same way about PE and how physical education lives in their world. So it's gonna be interesting.
So as was mentioned, all the revised course descriptions are available. We're excited when we go down to see the incoming freshmen as 8th graders, we get to talk about these new courses. They'll actually have a choice, which we talked to some of our students, a lot of our current PE students are pretty excited about that opportunity as well. So really pleased and looking forward to, like Gail mentioned, definitely overdue PE health updates. So we're in a really good place.
The science department had 2 small changes. So the first just being a prerequisite update in their biotech course. It's like a similar theme this year, but again, just allowing more access. Previously, it was very specific about the chemistry placement. And this is basically just saying that as long as you've taken a chemistry course or you're concurrently enrolled in a chemistry course, you can also take biotech. And then 2 courses that were removed. These extension courses have not been run in many, many years. And so we are just removing them again. It's just been a little bit long overdue. We don't run these courses anymore.
So a world language department update, actually a really exciting update. We currently have a couple of courses that are already designated as UConn EC, for example, Spanish 6 honors and our Mandarin Chinese 4 course. But we're actually able to now transition the 3 courses listed in front of you to have a UConn EC designation as well for students. So they'll be able to make that choice to see. You can certainly take Spanish conversation and cinema without the UConn designation, but for a student who wants to get some credits for college, while they're in high school, there's some really interesting options now in every single world language offering at Daniel Hand High School. So very positive and really excited about that. This also really exciting. We have an ASL teacher, and we are in the process of actually writing a course for deaf culture and American Sign Language that we think will be highly interesting for our students. We anticipate probably 2 offerings, a sign language 1 and a sign language 2 over the course of high school. I'm not sure it will take the place for some students. I think it will be taken in addition to, because a lot of our students are college bound and typically at least 3 years, in many cases, 4 years of a world language. We anticipate this will be a really exciting offering, and we're planning to run 1 section. We're hopeful next year based on student interest. And we have the ASL teacher and one of our Latin our Latin teacher, if we ever had one of them, that'd be great. But we have an outstanding Latin teacher going to another high school to see how this course is actually delivered. And they'll be working on writing this, and we anticipate some students to be really interested in taking this course next year. We've been talking about this for a few years now. The fact that we're actually planning now is really an exciting opportunity to, again, I think a lot of our students will find it really interesting, and we anticipate having some.
Extremely rare in a program of studies, hard to find somebody certified to do this, so we're really, really lucky. So the high school's been talking about it for years, and finally we're in the position to have the personnel in place, so.
And it's worth noting that, students now with the new graduation requirements are required to have at least 1 credit in world languages. Actually would fulfill that credit requirement, which is really exciting as well. We didn't want to put students in a situation where, there's not much room in the schedules anymore with state requirements, but this is a great opportunity for kids. And, we hope to update you more and more with interest as we move forward. And the fact that we have someone who's really interested in teaching this puts us in a great place.
Yeah, if I could just say real quick, we get requests sometimes from advocates, from parents, from people in the community. And from students that, they'd like to see more deference to disabled students and otherwise able students and staff and that sort of thing. And we can accomplish that not only through parking signs and physical accommodations and ADA and all of that, but we can also accomplish it through courses we offer. And I think this is a great example of forward thinking for disability equality. So thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
How does this generally play out in terms of the program of studies? You have the students selecting courses in January. Do you find that their elective courses, you just don't get enough numbers so that they're not offered, or?
That's a great question.
Frequent, or?
So the scheduling process is very complex, as you know. Mr. Bodner is the wizard. That's a part of the actual Infinite Campus called the Wizard. And you schedule, so he actually has a wizard hat. Looks pretty good in it too. And he works tirelessly to fill student requests. And if a student lists something on their course request form now, if a freshman signs up for Bake Shop, probably not happening because that's a class that fills with seniors first. He has been successful at fulfilling 95% or more of student requests, which is an incredible number. We also look very carefully, over time, if courses have no interest at all, we've removed them from the program of studies. So there's not a couple of kids who signed up and then they're lost. So we anticipate if we have enough students who sign up for this course, we will run this course. And I'll tell Mr. Bodner, we'll move it all different ways, all different times. And there's some really incredible flexibility within Infinite Campus that provides immediate data on impact for any move. If it's a period within a trimester or to a different trimester, if you have some time, ask Mr. Bodner and he'll give you a really detailed explanation on the actual process. It's hours. You might need hours for the explanation because it's like I tell him I used to schedule my last district panel. He didn't know how to do it. He did, but he's incredible with it. So we do, we prioritize courses as well, from seniors through freshmen. It's a great process. I do think when we get a little smaller, like we are now enrollment wise, there are not as many sections of courses offered because there are not as many students. That has proved a little more challenging. 10 years ago, with just under 1,400, there were sections everywhere. It was pretty easy. Now, Mr. Bodner probably has to spend a lot more time really focused on where maybe that one section will fit, and we'll make it happen.
I have to say, unique to Madison, pretty unique to Madison is the trimester schedule, and that helps tremendously. We've been in lots of interest for kids. It is a whole different world out there. It's not Munster, so that is a plus for kids in our district.
And I just wanted to add that we don't forget about our incoming freshmen, so taking time to meet at the middle school. So department coordinators go over, each coordinator will go over and meet with the department that's corresponding to them. So the English coordinator goes over, meets with the English department, just to answer questions as teachers are beginning to recommend what classes their students should take. We want to make sure that our 8th grade teachers feel confident in talking about our program of studies, that they don't maybe know the insides and out of all day. And then we also do a student presentation. So mainly the student presentation is focused on elective choices. We know that students are going to take math. We know that students are going to take English, but like, what cool art class do you want to take? What in CTE really interests you? What world language do you want to explore that maybe you didn't know was an option? So we spend time with the students kind of exploring some of those elective offerings for them, so that when they do see this, 100-page book or the website that they're looking at, they know maybe what to look for. So that's part of the process as well. And here, Gail, I'm gonna pass that over to you. That's a draft
I
copy.
have
of-
the old one.
Yeah.
I was ready.
So our last slide this evening was just a thank you, and all the course descriptions are included in the presentation. I'm going to switch presentation, but if anyone has any program of studies questions, we'll certainly answer them while I make this change.
My question was the one that you just answered. How do students know about the new updates, the new names of things, and sort of add that excitement to the opportunities that they have? So yeah, that's great.
In the high school, it's a little bit easier because we have access to
Yeah.
those kids
Yeah.
every day. So
Yeah.
it's something where, and Bill can even speak to it, but like if you're talking to your art kids, you're saying, hey, if you're in this class right now, and the next great option for you would be this. So it's easy to do that with our own kids, but we have to always be mindful of how do we include Polson in that as well, because they're making these same choices.
Yeah, maybe a short film could be made by the kids about what it is, and then they can play it over.
There is some of that,
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
That would be so fun, like an independent
Mhm.
project, and how to, connect them to, that would be really fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
Jen, do you have any questions or comments? We haven't forgotten about you.
Oh, no, I've been following along. Everything sounds really, really exciting for the kids so far. And, Steve, I echo what you were saying, that just seems very student centered, which is a goal that we had for our staff as they were writing curriculum. So I'm excited about everything I'm hearing.
Great, ready to switch gears?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
big gear switch, NIAS.
This is amazing how quickly he can go through.
Yeah, I'll go
this.
very, very quickly, try to provide as much detail as possible. The, NIAS process is, expected in high schools, but it could actually apply to any level. But that in our district, it's focused on the high school, and we're right in the middle of the process. So I'm going to go pretty quickly. If you have questions as I go through, feel free to jump in and stop me. I'll certainly try and answer them. But I wanted to give you just an idea. NIASC has changed quite drastically a few years ago, and they updated the protocols pretty significantly after input from a lot of member schools. And the older process that we went through in 2011, far different than the new process. It's still a 10-year cycle. You could, if you're wondering, why is it 2024, COVID pushed things back a bit. So there was certainly a delay. Worth noting, just right off the bat, is our current status as Daniel Penn High School is that we're an accredited high school. So we're just trying to maintain that accreditation. The entire faculty, it's a faculty-based process, spent the last year and a half doing a self-reflection that has been an incredible process. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming slides. We hosted a collaborative conference just a few days ago. We had 5 guests from other NIASC schools come in and participate in a new approach called the collaborative conference, very different from the previous process that high schools used to go through. The areas on this particular slide that are in white are what we've done. The areas in yellow are what's next. So we are going to be waiting for some feedback, which I'll talk about, that will help drive the development and implementation of a growth plan. We have a decennial accreditation visit, and as Board of Ed members, you certainly want to mark your calendar for November 17th, 2024. That's the kickoff. which will most likely be in this room for our decennial visit. And after that visit, we'll get feedback and write a new or revised improvement or growth plan. We get to call it either one. I like growth plan better than improvement, but those are the two terms it's referred to. And then we have to provide progress updates over the 2027 through 30 school year, and then a whole new cycle begins in 2031. So this is a never-ending process, but the new protocols are definitely far improved compared to the last set of protocols. I do want to just give a formal shout out. Jennifer Guzzi, Paul Mezek have been the accreditation coordinators, have done an outstanding job. There is the potential of NEAS really just draining the energy from a high school. They handled this wonderfully. We had a great staff meeting today where it was very positive, just as an update. And I told them, they're not finished yet. This goes for a 10-year cycle and they're all in, which has been excellent. Steering committee, I'm just showing you so you can see the number of staff that had leadership opportunities. That was something in our school development plan that we wanted to highlight. The NEASC opportunities for leadership were outstanding. This was a steering committee that were really responsible for the oversight. I'll talk about the standards on the left in a moment, but if you take a look at the right-hand column, you can see some additional leadership roles on each of the committees for each of the standards. Just for example, in standard 1 learning culture, you can see how Jen Hawley was the standard chair, but we have 2 additional chairs to focus on the foundational elements, which we'll talk about in a moment. So a lot of the faculty had specific leadership roles. And what's exciting is every single faculty member was involved in the process. This is not an administrative process at all. This is faculty run, and they did an absolute tremendous job. So the new standards of accreditation, there are actually 5 of them, and we just took a look at those, but I'll show you them again in a moment. There are 32 principles of effective practice, they're called. And then there's a descriptor for each of those effective practices. And then 6 foundational elements, just like their title, they're the foundation. This is what a school at a minimum must meet in order to meet the accreditation standards, and then the other standards of accreditation are reviewed. Themes in the 2020 standards were the profile of a graduate. I will say we were far ahead of a lot of high schools who were in the process of developing our profile of a graduate. We're implementing, which is excellent. The NEAS changed from culture of teaching around culture of learning. They're really looking at what the students are doing in the new process. They're talking with staff about practices versus beliefs. Love the developing a growth mindset for all constituents, and a focus on the well-being, social and emotional needs, especially due to the pandemic, are a priority within NEAS. So these are the 2020 standards of accreditation, and even if they change a bit, which they already have, they won't change for our high school until our next go around in 2024. But you can see there's 5 standards, one on learning culture, student learning, which is the main, most important standard for obvious reasons, professional practices, learning support, and learning resources. For a quick summary, each standard includes principles of what's called effective practice. These replace indicators in the former standards, and there's a descriptor for each. And if you participated in NEAS previously, there were 52 indicators, which is pretty overwhelming. Now there's 32 principles. It seems like it's less. I'm not sure it actually is based on the amount of work our faculty did over the last year and a half, but the indicators are really, you can personalize them to your school, and that has been really helpful. So as I mentioned, if you look at the foundational elements, there's a specific rubric. There's 6 foundational elements. Your school has to meet all 6 of those by the decennial visit, or your school will not be accredited. Your school can either meet or does not meet a foundational element. And that's a really important piece. And there's a foundational element in each standard. Again, I mentioned the second bullet already, so I won't repeat it. These are the essential building blocks. And again, that's why they're named foundational. And if any of the foundational elements are not met during the collaborative visit, which we had one, which we totally expected, that has to be a priority in the work over the next 2 years as we plan for the decennial visit in November of 2024. So the one foundational element we didn't meet, we put that in our self-reflection report, we'll certainly meet it by the 2024 deadline, and we'll talk about that. These are the specific foundational elements. So if you take a look on the left, those are the particular standards, the 5, and then you can look at the foundational elements. And you could see, for example, 1.1a, the school community provides a safe environment. If a school didn't meet that, that has to be a priority. And during the visit in November for our particular high school, that would be a focus area if we did not meet. The one foundational element that we did not meet the standard is 2.2a. But if you look at that one, it states there's a written curriculum in a consistent format for all courses in all departments across the school. Gail has worked really tirelessly, and we have the last two areas, currently working right now, which will be finished by that time. So NEAS will note that in the report, and we'll be in great shape by the time the decennial visit takes place in November of 2024. The standards for accreditation around each of the principles, remember I mentioned there's 32, those could be rated in 5 different categories, and the faculty actually rates these in the self-reflection report. Not yet evident, all the way up to transforming. We as a pretty impressive, if not very impressive high school, I'll show you where we rated each of the particular areas. Our self-reflection report, we were a little concerned that our faculty might be a little too hard on themselves. And that's a credit to them, but our self-reflection report really detailed, I think, the strengths in some areas we can focus on, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So this was just for your reading pleasure, the standard 1 learning culture principles. These are all of them. You can see 1.1 to 1.7. So in our self-reflection report, we had to write a narrative about each one of these. I highlighted in yellow the 2 foundational elements, which are the priorities, but then we had to provide evidence in each of the areas listed in those particular principles. Standard 2, obviously I'm not going to read them all to you, but I just wanted you to have this information so you can have an idea of the breadth of this actual process, which is pretty significant. This being standard 2, the focus without question of the NEAS visit. They want to make sure the student learning principles are a priority, because obviously student learning is our priority. And then the other 4 areas should be supporting student learning. Standard 3, professional practices around the principles as well. You can see foundational element, school as a current school improvement and growth plan. We presented on that seems like a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago. That was obviously a meet standard. And then you can look at the other areas that we had to reflect on as we went through the self-reflection process with the entire faculty. Learning support principles is standard 4. And the school has intervention strategies designed to support students. That was the foundational element, and all the others should be supporting that particular element. And last but not least, standard 5, learning resources. And if you look at the foundational element, the community and district provides the school buildings and facilities that support the delivery of curriculum, programs, and services. We were in a really good place in this particular standard as well. So as a quick summary, worth noting, every single faculty member was assigned to a committee throughout the self-reflection process. And we spread the departments within all of the committees. So it wasn't like the science department worked on standard 1 and the mathematics department on standard 2. This was one of the first times in many years that the departments were split up, and the staff really seemed to embrace that. We're going to follow that model moving forward. We did a survey, as you're required to all faculty, all students, and all parents and guardians, that the collaborative conference group that visited in November really look at the results of those surveys. We had our liaison visit Daniel Hand to explain the process in October of 21. Then we spent the last really year and a half preparing for this most recent 2-day collaborative visit that took place on November 2nd and 3rd. And we completed a self-reflection process that included what's called look back all the way through priority areas, and then had a collaborative conference visit on the 2nd and 3rd. Now, worth noting that self-reflection report, that's an internal document that's just for the faculty. The report that we will receive, you see coming up in the update school growth plan, that's a public-facing document that we anticipate receiving within 4 to 6 months. So it's a pretty extensive amount of time. but we're going to be reviewing the report when we receive it. I actually get a copy at first to see if I agree with the input from the NEAS visiting team. And once I say yes or no, if any revisions might be updated, then it gets sent out to NEAS. And actually they review the entire report and then vote on it. And then we'll get a finalized report within, again, 4 to 6 months. That's why you see that second to the last entry about updating school growth plan. We'll have 18 to 24 months to implement the new growth plan. We just can't really move forward until we get that report back. We have a good idea of what it's going to include, but over these next 2 years, we're going to spend a great deal of time planning for the 4-day decennial visit, which again is already scheduled on November 17th through 20th in 2024. Just so you have an idea of how extensive the collaborative visit is, 5 members come into your school. You put together a schedule and they work. And I know Melanie and I, Bill, have you ever done a collaborative? Melanie and I have been on the other side. It's an incredible day, but it's a lot to say the least. I listed the actual schedule just so you could see how many different school community members that the NEAS visiting team actually met with or observed over the course of their visit on November 2nd. And pretty significant, you know, from arrival to building tour by students, quick conversation with the administration and leadership team, and then from parents, students, they even observed our advisory lesson, which was excellent. They met with faculty, they observed numerous classrooms. Central office came and were part of the interviews. Support staff stayed after school, coordinators, administrators, and then they leave for the day and write all evening and return on the second day of the collaborative visit and literally sit in a conference room and write for about 4 hours. And then they finalize a draft of the report and do it says 45 minutes. It was a 30-minute debrief and then they're gone. And we were trying to write down every single thing they mentioned during that half hour to get a good idea of what to expect and what to present to our faculty this afternoon, as well as to the Board of Ed this evening. So this is an important slide. If you look at those 32 principles and all of those foundational elements, these were the only ones that we, as a faculty, agreed either did not meet standard or were only in the developing phase. So that's pretty impressive. The first one I mentioned, you know, around written curriculum, we all knew that was already there. We put that up front in our report because we know there's a process that's already in place to meet that particular foundational element. And then you could see the other 4. Standard 1, Principle 2, the school's core values, beliefs about learning and vision, graduate, derived student learning, professional practices, learning support. That particular piece, we've recently revised core values, beliefs. Now we have to implement it within everything we do. So that's not a surprise at all. The school has a vision for a graduate that includes the attainment of transferable skills. Like, we're in a great place. NEAS refers to it as vision of a graduate. Some people portrait, we're profile. So you can use those words interchangeably. With that being said, we have an excellent profile of a graduate. We have to just make that part of the life of our students right now. So that's also not a surprise. And this is what we selected as not meeting a standard. You know, the written curriculum in a common format I mentioned, and school buildings and facilities that support the delivery of high quality curriculum programs and services. So we have to do a little better work at managing the facilities that we have because we have so many different programs. The strengths as identified by our faculty, I thought the Board of Ed would be interested in this for learning culture principles. These were the list of the highlights that the faculty actually identified, and worth noting, once the self-reflection report is finished, you actually have to vote on the report. The faculty members only, administrators don't vote, support staff don't vote. And NEAS encourages at least 60% of your faculty votes to support the actual standard in each of the reports that were written. We had 98% for every one of our votes. And we actually had one person say, you know, I just voted no because I didn't want to be 100% the whole way. So it looked different. So almost 100% of our faculty agreed with everything that was written in the self-reflection report, including the strengths. And I also listed some faculty identified areas of growth as well. And again, this is a ton of information, but I thought when you have some free time if you wanted to take a look, we listed these for each of the standards. You can see under student learning, a lot of excellent strengths, which are really impressive. But I give our faculty a lot of credit because they picked some particular areas that they felt we should focus on for growth over the next 2 years, which we didn't disagree with. Again, as a faculty, 98% did support this report. Professional practices, again, lots of principles that were strengths. We also had a few areas of growth. Learning support, the strengths, again, pretty numerous. A few areas of growth as well. The learning resources, some strengths without question, and then some areas for growth. And at the end of the process, we call the growth plan anticipated because, as I described a few moments ago, there's a lot of steps that have to happen. We're moving forward under the assumption that the higher ups in NEASC are going to agree with the report that the collaborative group that you visited sent, and then take a look at where we plan to move forward. So we're going to be drafting a growth plan over the next few months. And we're thinking, obviously, the curriculum will be a focus, and that one's easy for our growth plan that's already in play. The PLC focus, professional learning communities and collaborative time. One of the challenges of the high school schedule is finding common time for teachers to meet. We're making that a focus. We actually started this year and it's been very positive. So we've already known, we knew this was going to be an issue the faculty wanted addressed, and we're already starting that. So again, the PLC piece and collaborative time with the use of data, really important piece. You know, we can't just give people time. There has to be a focus, and we have to see the data to help drive instruction, and that will help Gail with curricular work and a lot of the decisions we make as a school district. We thought communicate and uphold the tiered system of support, that's our SRBI process. NEASC actually highlighted us. That's one of the best they've ever seen when they came to see us. So they didn't agree with that one. When they don't agree with what we're recommending, it's actually a compliment. They also, or we suggested, promoting social and emotional mental health and well-being through our programs such as Advisory, Helping Hallway, and Wellness Wednesday. And then again, the maximizing use of our facilities. Hands a great building. There are some limitations that we have to manage all the programs effectively. So the debrief, this is what NEASC shared with us in the half hour. We all wrote as quickly as possible to try and, get an idea. They thought our priority areas would be the written curriculum, which again, we agreed with, improving the structure of PLCs, and the way it's written here, they condense it a little so the growth plan is not too dense, and then develop plans to address the limitations of the physical layout for specialty areas to support all programming. And then some of the recommendations they mentioned, offer resources students can pursue to foster diversity in thinking, improve communication of achievement and profile of graduates' families. Because again, now that we're embedding it with what we do with our students, we have to make sure parents are aware. And that was, again, not a surprise at all. PLC time, that's going to come up regularly. Again, giving our teachers time to work together to, look at data, student performance, adjust their instruction and, support as necessary. Although the SST process or the SRBI process at the high school was commended, they want us to work on engaging more of the faculty in the process because it's different at a high school level in comparison to other levels, and getting all faculty aware of the process and how it actually moves a student forward who's struggling is one of the tasks we'll take on over the next few years. And then an HVAC repair, no one was surprised at that one. We actually had an HVAC issue the day before with, a little water flowing through one of the second floors, just a little. But, some people thought that was on purpose, but that definitely was not the case. So that, it was like, you couldn't ask for more perfect timing. It was just interesting to see. So next steps, we're waiting for the collaborative conference report. I have a draft of the report. There's a particular portal that the NEASC group works in. I read the draft and it seems to be right in line with the debrief we had the other day. Can't tell you if that's exactly what it's going to look like. It has to go through a lot of different steps before we get the official collaborative conference report, we are going to work on a tentative growth plan over the next few months in anticipation of the collaborative conference report. And we're hoping to have it really finalized by May. So when we start to work on next year's district and school development plan, we can embed a lot of the NEAS growth plan into our school development plan. Because I could tell you our faculty doesn't want two school improvement plans. We would like to see them merge together. And I think that will be a pretty easy task. We're planning for the November 24 visit already. And again, that decennial visit is already scheduled on the November 17th, 2021.
I'm sorry, did you just, real quick, did you just say you're working on merging the school development plans with the NEASC recommendations?
We would like to have, like, our school development plan is very comprehensive. Yes, we spent a few hours with you and shared one piece. So I think we may still have been in here if we went over all of them for each of the schools. There's the categories in the school development and district development plan align very nicely with NEAS. It would be great if we could make sure all of the NEAS are in our school development plan, because both will be our focus, so we don't have two living plans.
Yeah.
You know, part of NEAS, part of the foundational element is you have to have a school development plan or a school improvement plan. We have that. We don't want to have a totally separate NEAS improvement or growth plan. And based on the feedback we had during the debrief, I think it's going to be pretty easy to transition. And I will say the 5 committee members, and we can't share who they are, they have to keep it confidential. They all work in different districts all over the state. You know, at the end, they're like, we want to work here. Like, we're jealous with everything you have, like very impressed when they left. And I've been in communication with the chair because that's just part of the process moving forward. So it was a great visit. And I told our faculty, really proud of them today, you know, just on the work they've done over the last couple of years without letting this take over and just make us forget everything else going on that is a priority in our school.
I just have to say, it's easy to merge the two because NEAS went through that revision and reimagined it.
Yeah.
If we were back 10 years ago, I think TJ would entirely agree. It would not combine with where we were going with profile of the graduate, and all of the work that we've done in the district. They were very clearly very different pathways, but now, you know, very much the same values. So that's makes it a little bit more helpful.
And once we receive the collaborative conference report, I'll obviously share that with Dr. Cook, and then that's a public facing document. And I think we'll be proud to read the content of it, and it will, based on our collaborative conference visit that ended with that debrief, point us in a direction we were hoping. Like, that's the idea of the visit being collaborative. If you've ever gone through it previous, the change, it wasn't really collaborative. It's truly collaborative now, and they are looking to help you move your school where you think it needs to go. And where the we is the entire faculty, which, you know, again, every single faculty member was deeply involved in this process.
I just want to add that the board, the rest of the board, this presentation was done once before, a couple years ago, 2 years ago.
Probably the first 10 slides.
Yeah, and just kind of getting ready for NEAS, so it's not entirely new information, but we thought that a reorientation was really helpful. So I want to thank TJ for putting all that together. More to come on the NEAS visit, you know, that as we anticipate the final report. And I know we're kind of out of time, but I think you heard an overview of the printmaking course as it was in development a few times from Bill. And now you have before you the units and how they've been crafted in your packet. And I just want to see if there's any questions for Bill and on that course. And again, we went after that humanities designation, which you should see quite evident in that course.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I mean, it was great. And, having been through the process myself through years, I'm really gratified to hear that it has evolved to be much more student-centered and, and focused on learning.
I couldn't agree with you more. The changes have been refreshing. Because the old process was far from refreshing.
It's clear to me, that you did a great job on this, you and your team. So, you're to be applauded on that. Great
Thank
job.
you.
Any questions from other members of the committee?
No, just thank you. I mean, I know that's a heavy lift, the whole thing is, and thank the teachers and for us and the staff and everyone who participated, which is everyone, the way that this works, and it's a lot of work. And they all should be commended as well.
And we had coffee, cookies, treats at the faculty. It was a good faculty.
Always provide the provisions, it's brilliant, yeah. It makes a difference.
Mr. Bronco makes some good cookies.
There you go.
It was a good afternoon.
But
I'm any members of the public.
especially glad to see that NEASC has bent and come more towards a modernization of its approach, because as a district under a prior administration, we were actually considering going with that tri-state instead of NEASC. And you know, it's good to see that if we're required to do all this work and this heavy lift, at least it aligns with where we want to go.
Absolutely.
So that's good. And thank you for all the work.
Thank you all.
You bet. Thanks for your time. We, as promised, 1 hour.
You did
Look at that.
Thank you.
Masterful job.
Yeah, thank you.
We kept you going. So we are adjourned.